up, guys? I'm Sam. Welcome back for another episode of Elite Life with Sam. We have the beautiful Caitlin Frazier here with us today. Caitlin, how are you?
Good. How are you today?
Awesome. I'm so honored that you chose to be here.
Oh my goodness. I am honored that you asked me. I was thrilled. I kept telling people, like, I'm going on a podcast.
Now, is this your first podcast?
Well, it's my first in-person podcast. I've done podcast over Zoom or over, I've done all the audio, but this is my first time where I've been on a couch. So
Yeah.
This is exciting for me.
Yeah, I've done those a couple of times, and there's nothing wrong with them, but it feels more like an interview.
Absolutely.
Than like hanging out with a friend.
Absolutely. Yes, yeah. I agree.
I'm very blessed that you're not just willing to come, but that you were so close. You're just in Lebanon, right?
I am. I'm in Lebanon. Yeah. I work in Lebanon and live in Nashville, so this was just...
Oh, okay.
Actually, this was a nice way to be like, I'm taking a half a day because I'm just going to go home after this.
There you go. That works. That's awesome. So why don't you tell our listeners exactly what you do?
Yeah. So I run Frazier Motorcar Company with my father. He's been in business for almost 50 years, and I've worked with him now for almost 20. I think our 50th and our 20th is next year.
Wow.
So we buy and sell European collector cars. So vintage Jaguars and Porsches and Mercedes and all the British cars. And it's great. I think a lot of people ask, like, oh, how is it working with your dad? I love it. We're two peas in a pod. We finish each other's sentences. So incredibly blessed to be able to work with him. And that's what keeps me coming back every day is getting to hang out with my dad.
I love it. So you grew up in this industry.
Yes.
Your dad was all about this.
Absolutely. I do not remember one day without a sports car in my life.
Wow.
He tells stories of, the 80s.
What a time to be alive.
My brother Casey was born 11 months to the day after me. So he basically had twins in the 80s. And he'd put us on like the floorboards of Porsche 356s because there weren't any seatbelts for car seats. So he just like put us down in the buckets there. So my entire life has been in cars.
Oh my gosh.
My entire life has been made possible by cars. So that's always something I have to keep in mind in my business on the hard days. Like, your entire life has been made possible because of cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
that is absolutely something that I think people are a little shocked to find out, that Nashville's not just honky tonks and country music. Nashville has such a rich environment. There is a huge automotive presence here, as well as culinary and arts. And there's so much more to Nashville than just Broadway and what you see on social media.
So much more. And I always wonder, like, why do people come here to visit if they're only going to do Broadway? Because there's so much to do here, so much to offer.
Yeah.
And it's such an interesting group of people who have settled here. I mean, you just meet different people all day long.
What I have found, though, working in this industry, we meet a lot of people from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds, as I'm sure you do as well. And they really appreciate the slower Southern way of living and tend to maybe not fully understand it, but definitely when they move here, it's like, it intrigued me enough and I enjoyed it enough that I wanted more of that in my life.
Yes.
And so I love that so much. I wasn't born and raised here. I was born and raised in the Panhandle of Florida. However, it's not that different.
Right.
The way that we live.
Right.
But you are a unicorn. You were born and raised here.
I was not.
No?
No. I was born in Kansas City and I was raised in Colorado. And we moved here 15 years ago.
Oh, so this all started somewhere else.
Yes. This started.
That's an even bigger, like, to move a company like that.
Oh, it's wild. That story is wild. My dad went to school. He and my mom are both from the Kansas City area.
Okay.
And my dad went to school in Santa Barbara to be an actor of all things.
No way.
Yep.
From actor to sports cars.
Yes, both of my parents are very artistic, which I don't think a lot of people know right off the bat, but they're really bohemian and artistic. So he was going to be an actor, and in order to get in-state tuition in California, he had to take a year to live there.
Yeah.
And so he was working odd jobs, and he was watching Austin Healey's and MGs go up and down the coastline and realized that those cars were underneath snow in Kansas City.
Yeah.
So what would happen if he went home bought one and flipped it.
What a smart little entrepreneur.
And it became so profitable that he was like, what am I doing being an actor? Like,
starving artist over here.
So he was like 3 credits away from graduating, and he was like, forget it. And that's kind of how the beginnings of Frazier Motorcar Company. So he ended up moving back to Kansas City. He worked in Kansas City. He worked in Dallas. And then he met my mom on a trip back to Kansas City, moved back there. And then they got married like that, had 2 kids right away. And then when I was 6, we moved to Colorado.
Okay.
So I'm truly a mountain goat. I am a mountain girl. And then they had 2 more children about 9 years after my brother, because we were so close in age. They were like, let's cool it for me.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, but my brother Casey's a musician. He's a singer-songwriter. So we were constantly back and forth here.
Okay.
And at one point, we were all over. I was like in Europe, and my brother and his girlfriend were in the Pacific Northwest and in California, and my parents were in Colorado. And at one point, we were like, let's just all go to Nashville.
Yeah.
So that was 15 years ago, and since my brother has moved back to California, and the rest of us are here, so he's making his music out there. And we definitely had to get used to the slower pace of life. It was culture shock like I have never experienced before.
Oh, yeah? Well, yeah, and you moved out to Lebanon, not even...
Oh, yeah. Not even Nashville.
Yeah.
Lebanon, and then even before Nashville.
And that was 15 years ago.
So.
I don't think the general public realizes how much that the greater Nashville area has changed in 15 years.
Exactly.
Even just looking at the skyline.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
And everything that goes with it.
Absolutely.
What hasn't changed are the roads. They still suck.
They're still terrible. They're awful. And we really started coming out here. My youngest brothers will be 22, so about 22 years ago. So we've really seen that whole thing change. But yeah, that slower pace of life, which is amazing now, and I wouldn't want it any other way. But those first 5 years.
And you were what age?
I was. I had. I was about to turn 22.
Okay, so you were like in your prime.
Yeah. I was raring to go.
You wanted that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep, that would be an absolute shock.
Wild.
Yeah.
It was wild. But now I can't think of going anywhere else. You know, every now and then we talk about like, maybe we'll retire to Europe. Maybe we'll do this. And then I'm like, well, except for Italy doesn't have biscuits and gravy. Like what?
Yeah, their gravy is red sauce.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, I love being here, and it's such a great place to do business.
Yeah.
It's a great place to live. So yeah, it was worth getting through those first 5 years of.
I'm glad you made it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you made it through then.
Yeah.
So tell me about the evolution of just growing up in this family and being part of this family to being a family-owned business.
So again, my parents were very bohemian and very artistic. My mother has like 4 degrees, a master's in theology. She always was really into learning, and both of my parents were very into music and the arts. And then the car business kind of just supported all of us in doing that. It was an art form to my dad.
Yeah.
Because it is when we run this business, it's not so much like a car dealership. It's an art museum. It's a history museum. Like we're dealing with things that don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So because they were like that, they had very artistic children who were kind of out of the box. And so my mother decided to homeschool us.
Oh, wow. I was homeschooled.
Were you really?
Yeah, through high school.
Yeah. I mean, I loved it. I don't know if I were to have children now, I'd be able to do it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, kudos to my mother.
Absolutely.
It was a great way to grow up. Such an interesting way of coming of age to be homeschooled and, you know.
And people hear that and they think, oh, you're one of the weird ones.
Yeah.
But not necessarily.
No.
I really just hated being in a classroom setting.
Yeah.
And I wanted to learn kind of more my own pace in my own way.
Yes.
And not realizing I had raging ADHD. And so
you hear that a lot?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So
Yes.
do you feel like that's more, you were less of like the church sheltered type of
Yeah, and
homeschooled?
I think we tried to run in those circles a lot,
Yeah.
and then found that like that didn't suit us.
Yes.
So my brother was like you. He was, again, the musician, couldn't sit still, couldn't be in a classroom. I was incredibly studious, incredibly precocious. I wanted to learn everything. I would teach myself. I'd get up and do school. I mean, I was that annoying kid.
Oh, no.
Even now, if I start drinking, I've earned the reputation as the drunk historian. Like, give me a drink and I'm going to tell you about something.
I love that. I love that so much.
I will just, whatever topic is on my mind, I'm going to tell you.
We have to have happy hour here on the podcast one day.
That would be fun.
I love it.
Until you get tired of me talking.
Drunk history with Caitlin Frazier.
So I was definitely a little bit too smart for my own good, and really got into my studies. I was a dancer. I was an Irish step dancer.
What is happening? You may be the most interesting human and family. I have to meet the rest of them.
They're wild. I mean, we adore each other. We're always up in each other's business. There's no bad blood with anybody, but every single person is their own wild character.
I love it though. Irish step dancing.
I was an Irish step dancer. So that was my whole world. Casey's whole world was music. My whole world was dance. And then school, I was just very, very into school. So I ended up graduating a year early. And I wanted to go to college so bad. Like I was just so excited about college.
Yeah.
And so I started with a community college because I was so young. And I got there and I was bored to tears.
Oh, I bet.
I was bored to tears. And I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, I read that book. I've done that. And I also kind of had this knowing, I'm a very type A, high-strung person. And I've loosened up a lot since my high school days. I kind of knew that academia would kill me. I would be so worried about my grades and getting everything right and, graduating with degrees. I was like, this isn't good. This is not healthy for me.
Yeah.
Plus I'm bored and I don't want to do this. Yeah. So I dropped out and I told my parents, I said, listen, I don't want to go to school. I want to travel the world. And they were super supportive of it. My mom even threw me like a little dropping out party. I love her. But they were like, everyone loves my mother. She's a saint. But they were like, but we'd like you to work with your father.
Yeah.
Like maybe get a taste of that.
Yeah. A little bit of structure. Yeah. So you don't go flying off the deep end.
And that would help pay for my travels.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into the business. And I would say for a solid 10 years, I fought against it. I would work and then I would travel and I'd come back and I'd always think, oh, eventually I'll get out of this and I'll do something else. And usually that always ended up with me going back to dance. But I really couldn't, at that point, I really couldn't keep up dancing. I had a lot of injuries.
That Irish step dancing, that is dangerous.
It's extremely dangerous. Oh my gosh, the injuries are wild. And I say that, but I still teach classes on Saturdays. So I'm still doing it.
It's in your blood.
It is. Like I can't get away from it. So for 10 years, I was like, no. This isn't like my career. This is just what I do to support my travel habit.
Yeah.
And at that point, we were working in the Gulch. We were the classic side of Music City Motorsports, which is no longer there. Mm-hmm. And right around the 10-year mark was when Nashville started to blow up. Mm-hmm. And you could no longer drive old cars across town to get fixed. You'd be in traffic half the day.
Right.
And you can't be in traffic with an old British car. You're going to break down. I mean, I remember one summer we were breaking down every other trip because you just can't be in the heat with old cars. Mm-hmm. So he decided he wanted to move out to Lebanon. He wanted to move the business out to Lebanon. And at that point I was still like, I've been traveling a lot. I decided I'd help him move out to Lebanon, and I worked at a gym part-time while we were getting things in order. Mm-hmm. And then I started to realize I was kind of good at it. I was, especially because at that point in time, the euro was a lot stronger than the dollar. And I had traveled so much at that point, I was really good with Europeans. Mm-hmm. I kind of knew the lingo. I knew all of the ports. So we were sending cars to Europe every other week, and I was getting the hang of it.
Yeah.
And I think it was about that time, which also would have been around the time that like the frontal lobe everything kind of clicked.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is my career.
Yeah.
And once that happened, once that clicked, he and I kind of just took off and we haven't looked back. It's been a partnership. We've gone through some very difficult times in the business together. But it's been very fruitful.
Yeah.
And we've been incredibly blessed. But I think it really took that moment for me to be like, no, this is your job.
Yeah.
This is what you're going to do. And you are pretty good at it. And he's giving you this. Like he's offered this. He's opened this up for you. And it's up to you now what you do with it. That changed everything.
Yeah.
And I think for a long time I really struggled with like, oh, I'm working for my dad. Like this is a Nepo baby thing. And the haters will say that it's I'm a Nepo baby. But that I've found, because I know a lot of people who have been given jobs from their fathers or their mothers. That's a tale as old as time.
Right.
We've always, if your father was a butcher, you were a butcher. Like, that's just what we've done.
Yeah.
Now we have a name for it that makes it sound negative.
Right.
But it's really what you do with it. Like,
right.
They can give you that.
Yeah.
But how are you going to do, like, because you could be given a job.
And there are circumstances where children are given things,
yes.
are handed things.
Yes.
Not negating that. However, there's also the flip side of that where, hey, I happen to be good at this.
Right.
Like I grew up in this. I cut my teeth on this.
Exactly.
Blood, sweat, and tears, so to speak. So of course I'm going to be good at it. So I think people need to maybe reserve those opinions until they learn a little more about the situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I have 4 siblings and 2 don't, like, they could have worked with us too, and that just wasn't done at all. Like, it would have been open to all 4 of us. And then the youngest one I think he's kind of going through the same thing. Now he's 22, so there's going to be some more growing pains there. But again, the same thing, I think for a while he was pushing against it, like, oh, my dad gave me this job.
Yeah.
And now he's realizing that he's very good at the job that he's been given.
Yeah.
In fact, we have 2 separate employees today, and he is our truck driver for the most part, and he's on a load today. And I said, well, Kian's not here, and they were like, oh man, we're gonna have to move all the cars ourselves. Kian's the best at this. Yeah. He's the one who gets it. He's the one who knows, like, how to be a porter, how to move these things. And so eventually you come to that moment, you're like, oh, this is my calling. This is what I'm good at. Like, I can monetize that, and we can be grateful to our Father for giving us the opportunity instead of fighting against it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it sounds like your parents really supported you guys figuring out who you were.
Oh, absolutely.
Your individuality, having life experiences, figuring out your passions, and kind of sowing those oats.
Yes.
And then, but still giving you a wonderful foundation to come back to.
Yes, they did. They were amazing at that. They were very into each individual child and who they were and what they were about, and just completely supporting that person.
That's really rare to have parents that are able to do both.
And I think they'll even say, and the 2 youngest ones will say too, like with Casey and I, we're 11 months to the day apart. So we're night and day in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways we're the same. And who my parents were when we were born were very different to who they were when my youngest 2 siblings came along. So it's like having 2 completely different sets of kids.
Yeah.
So Casey and I are the artsy ones, and Kinsey and Kian are like full-blown rednecks. My sister just got hired as the Wilson County animal control officer, and she is thrilled. Like, she's got a badge. Like, oh yeah, they drive jacked up pickup trucks. Like, that is who they are. So it was hard, I think, for my parents to support 2 different sets. We've got like these really artsy, sensitive, worldly, well-traveled, and then we've got these 2, Bo and Luke Duke over here that
you guys need your own show. This is amazing.
But because of that, we all get along really well, because we're just so different that nobody's in the other one's lane. So.
Yes, I love that. I love that. Well, I can definitely see where your parents have had a huge influence on everything about your life,
Yes,
whether it's
absolutely.
influencing you through example or just giving you love and support. So you finally figure it out. Okay, this is my passion. This is my this is my career. And that's such a substantial moment because I think as a young woman, we never sit back and go, you know what? I'm going to go into one of the most masculine, male
Never.
dominated industries that I could possibly. I think the next step after auto is like welding or like
Yes. Yes.
lumberjacking.
It is full blown male. I think I can go weeks without seeing a female.
Yeah.
Weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, months even. And if I do, it's the wife of somebody who's coming in to buy a car. She doesn't want to be there.
Absolutely.
She does not want to be there. So yes, there was never a moment growing up like, yes, this is it.
Yeah.
This is what I want.
I'm gonna get into cars.
Yeah.
Now I think the generation coming up after us, it's become kind of like cool,
Yes.
like a trendy thing.
Absolutely.
Especially like in the more rural areas to be into the jacked up trucks and the OBSs
Yes.
and stuff like that. But not our generation.
No, never.
You know.
Never. I mean, and we see that every day when men come in because they just don't expect
Yeah.
a woman to be in this.
So let's talk about that a little bit. We kind of got into this a little before we hit the record button, but I have shared quite a bit of my experience from this side of things, being a female owner counterpart, and it's the let me talk to the owner. Well, you are speaking to an owner, and then it's like, I need to talk to a man right now,
It's true. And they say those exact same things.
Yeah.
No, I need to talk to the man. Or I'm looking for the boss. I'm the boss. And then they'll just laugh and like look for someone else.
Yeah.
And I even have found that with women too, which is always heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Like, girlfriend, you and me, like, look me in the eye. Don't look for him. Don't look for this one. Or, I've had customers come in and generally without an appointment. We talked about that too.
Yeah.
They love,
Please make appointments.
Please
people.
make appointments.
And if you're unsure, just call and say, hey, would you like me to make an appointment?
Yes, we would respect that so much. And I'll get up and I'll introduce myself. And it's like that doesn't click. Like, Frazier's on the door and I'll say, I'm Caitlin Frazier. And it still just does not compute in their heads.
Yeah.
And you'll walk back and you'll show them things and they'll immediately start talking to the photographer. Like, he's the one. And most of the time the photographer's like, talk to her.
I have no idea what you're saying, dude.
Yeah, like, I'm not going to tell you about price. I'm not going to talk, it's constant. It's constant. And I'm grateful that I have a team that's extremely respectful of me and what I do there. Like, they know I'm the boss. And that's awesome. But that doesn't always correlate to the outside world.
Yeah.
And I did have an employee for a long time who just absolutely would not respect working for a woman. In fact, told somebody once that he felt bad for me, that I was never going to find love because women aren't supposed to be in places of authority and weren't supposed to be bosses. And I was like, you are so lucky that everybody else wants to keep you here, because I would have fired you right away. He did eventually get fired, but it was wild. I was like, I'm writing your checks. Like, I'm giving you a job and you just will not respect that. And it's very hard, I think, being in that place of being an owner, being the boss, because you want to have humility and you want to treat people with kindness.
Yes.
And sometimes you're put into a position where you go, do I keep my mouth shut? Or do I show that this is my place and I'm the boss? And I think every day you have to go in and, okay, how am I going to deal with this? Okay, how am I going to deal with this? And usually, like you were saying with your husband, usually one of the guys, if it goes south real quick, they're going to turn back to me. And then you've got somebody there, eating crow.
Yeah.
Because they're like, well, what did Caitlin say? What does Caitlin think about this? But it's very difficult. It's very difficult every day to, pull it together, be a lady, but also be a boss.
Right. Right. And I think that society, especially the generation that we grew up in, because we came after the generation that our mothers were the ones that went, it's kind of like a pendulum swing,
Yeah.
right? And so our grandmothers were the homemakers.
Yes.
The husbands went out and, hunted, killed, gathered.
Right.
The women stayed home and raised the children and tended the house and did all the things. However, then they had the next generation who are our mothers who went a little wild.
Yeah.
They really forged the path for us to be able to have so many of the rights that we have.
Yes.
And really going back in time, over the timeline of the last 50 years and realizing just how young a lot of our rights are is mind-blowing.
Yes.
And so, women couldn't have their own credit card until the late 80s.
Oh, it blows my mind.
Absolutely astounding. And so I can't negate the struggles that they had in their life. I'm very grateful that they paved the way for women like us. But I feel like our generation caught some backlash as well because it's almost like we were expected to be so masculine.
Yes.
And so now we're finding the balance between when to, because I really think that being a woman in male-dominated spaces is a superpower at times. And so figuring out how to balance the masculine with the feminine, because men and women both have both.
Yes.
How do you figure that out for yourself?
Again, I think one beautiful thing is having this team that really supports me. So that helps me to be softer in myself. And also having a fun, I always call my dad the widow whisperer because we get a lot of our cars from widows, who they don't know what to do with these cars. And I can always tell when he's on the phone with one because he becomes so soft and he becomes so loving, and as opposed to talking to a guy in New York where he becomes so much more gruff. So my father is he's not the youngest, second to youngest, but he had 3 sisters, no boys. So very good with women. Said that he was a much better girl dad than a boy dad. He knows what to do with his girl. He's got, my niece lives with them, so he's got a granddaughter there all the time too. So he's very good with women, and that helps me to be softer. He will say that I'm the scarier one. And sometimes he'll be like, no, I'm going to take that phone call because I know you're going to lose your mind.
Yeah, been there.
Yeah.
Wait, what's your zodiac sign?
Aries.
Oh, that makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah, just had a birthday a couple weeks ago. So that helps a ton. Also, and this has been recent, and actually one of my New Year's resolution was to be more in tune with my soft side, to be in my soft girl era. But one of my side hustles, not a hustle because I'm not making money.
Your side passion.
My side passion is that I work with the ballet and I work in the arts a lot.
Okay.
And that's very creative.
Yes.
And I'm very passionate about it. And that allows me to really cultivate the things that I wanted as a child. My earliest memories were of ballet. That was my first love. And that very feminine space when I work every day in a very masculine space. So I get this wonderful balance, and that has been a game changer. But some days it's like yesterday I flew off the handle. Well, I didn't. I thought I was being well behaved. My photographer was like, wow, I've never seen you like that. I was like, well, that was tame.
And you should see me on Tuesdays.
I was like, really? I thought I was being good. So, some days you just, and I felt kind of bad.
What happened? Do you mind?
No, it wasn't. So, I had a car delivered in Austin Healy, and the driver didn't speak English very well, and a lot of them don't. It's
we deal with a lot of transport.
So you know that's kind of typical. And he came in. We're having a ton of construction done around our business, not ours, but so the trucks can't get up to our spot, which is fine. There's a road right outside and they can just pull off. But he wanted to get closer and he was making a big deal out of it. And then the car came with a top that should have been put on the car before it left. In everybody else's mind, that made sense. Well, the driver put it off to the side, and then he wanted to charge me more for this top. And I was like, what?
That came with the car?
That came with the car that should have been on the car.
Okay.
Yeah. And he kept yelling, pay, pay, and like wouldn't give us the keys. And I was like, no, we're not doing that. And that's where I kind of like I started to get a little bit heated, and he kept wanting to come closer, and I was like, just go get the car. Just go get the car and bring it up here.
Yeah.
And stop standing here arguing with me over your translate on your phone. Just get the car and bring it up here. And we got it worked out. Like, the guys talked to his dispatcher and was like, listen, we're paying you way more than we would pay anyway, so the top is a non-issue.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those things where it was like he was not going to take my word.
Yeah.
And then he came in with his tail between his legs and was like, oh, she's the one who's going to pay me.
Yes.
So I wasn't as nice as I could be to him, but he did soften a lot. I was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. But it's just stuff like that where you're just constantly being argued with, or, one of my favorites is when somebody calls through the email about a car that's pending. Let's say this is a big one, where we've got signed paperwork, but we haven't finished out all the details of the deal. We haven't been paid, or we're fixing it, or whatever it is.
You're in the middle of the deal, and that takes time.
It does. Yeah. It does. And a lot of times we'll have customers who pay half, and then they go to Mexico, and then that happens all the time. Like, we're going to go on vacation, we'll come back and get it. And you'll get an email from somebody who wants that car, and I'll say, I'm sorry, it's pending. I've got signed paperwork. And then they'll write to Jeff and say, well, Caitlin said, but I want to know from you. And she's like, what Caitlin said? It's sold. And it's so bizarre. Like, they have to have a male reiterate before they believe you.
Yes, absolutely.
Blows my mind.
Yeah. Blows my mind. I think in a lot of situations, let me speak from personal. I can't, obviously I can't project this onto you, but what I have found is that it's such a rarity to deal with a female in authority in these spaces that it is a steep learning curve.
Yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely.
But once they've learned it, once they've had that experience and they've realized, like, it is just the same scenario, it doesn't matter the gender of the person that you're talking to. So our whole front end is staffed with females.
Love that.
The productions manager is my sister, and then her assistant, Sam, is a female.
Yeah.
And we did that intentionally, not that we were staunch about not having males in the front, but we really preferred to have a female there for two reasons. One is that we are trying to change people's mentality towards this industry and make it much more of commonplace to have a female in positions of authority. And two, because the female energy, the femininity, brings a whole different dynamic.
Absolutely.
Not just with the customer base, but also our whole atmosphere here at the shop. Yes. And so one of the things that people will say when they walk into Elite is, we don't have a showroom. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that people don't necessarily clock that as soon as they walk in. Mm-hmm. They will just realize that something is different about our custom shop as opposed to other custom shops in the area. Right. And so their guard is down immediately, and they go, this is a much different experience, but they can't put their finger on it.
Right.
Well, it's because we haven't made this such a salesy experience. Yes. You don't immediately walk into, a wall full of speakers that are blaring music and, head units and cameras and, all the different setup. That is like walking into a Best Buy, and it is
overload.
It is. Yeah. It is just like in your face, and immediately for me as a female, my guard goes up. Yes. Boom. And we really wanted to make it a really comfortable experience to draw in more female clients as well. Because I don't know if you've found this in your industry, but women, because we're more comfortable in positions of leadership, are earning more than we've ever earned in history. And we're more independent than we've ever been in history. And we're staying single longer than we ever have in history. And putting off having children for longer, if ever. And so we have more expendable finances at our, disposal. And we want to spend it on cars
Yeah.
and travel
Yeah.
and, you know, luxury items. And so are you seeing an influx in women who are coming in to purchase cars?
A little bit. A little bit.
But we need to see more.
I need to see more. I want to see more.
Yeah.
I follow a lot of accounts on Instagram of young women in Europe who are buying the cars that we have. But
If it starts in Europe, it's going to
it'll
trickle
be
here.
It'll be here. It's something that I'm super passionate about. Like, I want women in these cars. These cars are so beautiful. I want beautiful women in them. Like, I
Yes.
want that. I want to see that. They're works of art. They're a fashion statement. Like,
Yes.
a Jaguar XKE makes a totally different statement than my Volkswagen GTI. Like, it's a whole different thing. Although the GTI does have its little cult following. I did not know until I bought one. But
Yes.
it's they're so beautiful and they're so classy, and I want to see more women. So I love it when we get a woman who wants, you know, I can think of two in particular in the past few years. One wanted a 450 SL. It was beautiful, beautiful Mercedes. And she came and she drove it and she got it herself. And I was so proud of her. And then there was a woman who bought a Porsche. And so many of her stories, when she was talking to my dad, he was like, that's what Caitlin goes through every day. And so they ended up hitting it off right away, because I really don't do the sales part. I don't.
Right.
I'm there for the back end. When they buy the car, I'm the one you talk to. But immediately she was at ease because she knew, like, oh, he sees this every day.
Yeah.
And we had a woman in a couple days ago. She wanted to buy an MGB, and she drove all the way down here, and she got in it and she drove it, and she was like, it just doesn't feel right. And we said, well, then don't buy it.
I love that.
Buy it, because we want you to want it and we want you to feel right in it. So go find the one you want, and if it's not here, then it's not here.
Yeah.
But I think having that approach to women and not acting like, you know, as well as the rest of us know, when you go get your oil changed, what that experience is going to be.
Oh yeah, they'll catastrophize everything.
Everything.
Your wheels are about to pop off.
Yeah,
you're going to be broken down on the side of the road. You're just a young helpless thing. You can't do anything.
You don't want that experience for your women customers. Like, I want them to come in and be like, you know what, I can make this decision on my own.
Yes.
I can be confident, and if I don't want it, I can walk out and not feel bad about it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like I went to get one of our inventory cars oil change. It was a Jaguar. And he was like, ma'am, you got an oil leak. And I said, honey, they all leak oil.
Exactly.
This is a Jaguar. They all leak oil. And he like didn't know what to do. And I was like, just the oil change, please.
Yes.
That's all I want. But I don't want that experience for women when they come into my office. And so, yes, we're getting to see a little bit more, but I want all of them. I want ladies to start buying these cars. I want them to start cultivating these cars and enjoying them. And, you know, you don't have to be a gearhead. You don't have to be a gearhead.
Preaching my sermon. I love that. We say that all the time. Our big thing, we we do everything by appointment only. And we see time after time, women will come in with their husbands, even though it's for their car. Right. Whatever makes you feel comfortable. Right. If you want to bring a bodyguard, we don't care. Whatever makes you feel comfortable and at ease. And they'll sit in the office, and generally, if Rich knows it's for a woman, he'll ask if I will sit in, because women speak a different language. Yes. And so we've seen so many times where we'll get about 10 to 15 minutes into the appointment, and she'll go, okay, honey, you can go. I don't need you here anymore. You know, and he's like, all right, I'm out. Or he'll be like, wait just a second. Hold on, I have questions about my car now, you know?
Love that.
And so that right there is like better than, you know, a 5-star review, in my opinion. Now, we love 5-star reviews.
We do love our 5-star reviews.
But that really does something for me, because it's like, oh, okay. And our whole thing, our whole reason for doing that is, you don't have to buy here. You don't have to customize with us. But we want to make sure that we give you enough time and attention to answer all the
Yes.
quote unquote stupid questions, which I hate that phrase. They'll go, I'm going to ask a really stupid question. Ladies, we have to stop saying that.
It's true. It's like an apology for asking any question at
No,
all. Like,
first of all, never apologize.
Right.
You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And if anyone is making you feel, quote, dumb for asking a question, that's not your people.
Right.
So they'll go, I'm going to ask a question. And that we're so excited because we're about educating people.
Absolutely.
So even if you go somewhere else for whatever reason, at least you're not being taken advantage of.
Yes.
And we will have people send us estimates from other shops to review it and go, hey, they've double charged you for this.
Right.
They just named it something different.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally the exact same service. And they'll throw it out and come here every time.
Get that pink tax.
Yep. Exactly.
Get that pink tax. Oh, it's a woman.
Exactly.
She won't know. She won't know the difference.
Exactly. And so I think what I hope is happening is that men are recognizing the benefit of having women on board and educating women and empowering women because we have just as much and different to offer in this space.
Absolutely.
And so I just love that you're here, like just leading the charge in this. And I was going to say, women have been connoisseurs of fashion for eons. And I think that, a vintage Chanel has, carries a certain stature with it.
Absolutely.
Driving a vintage Porsche or Mercedes.
Absolutely.
That much and more.
Mm-hmm.
If you are getting out of an old school and, you're stepping out and you've got your Louboutins or hell, your cowboy boots, who cares?
It doesn't matter. That car.
That garners a certain type of respect by itself.
Mm-hmm.
And let's talk about sex appeal.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Holy moly.
Oh my goodness, yes. And I think there's something about that vintage car, and we love our like we just took a later model Maserati on consignment and it's beautiful. It is. But there's something about stepping out of a vintage car that just creates it creates a narrative around a person without them ever having to say anything.
Yes.
And I think that is so cool.
Exactly.
I think that's one of the coolest things that happens in my business. And I get sad that so many of these cars just go to old men.
Yeah.
They pay my bills.
They deserve to appreciate it, but I think that it would really do something for women in this space, in all spaces, to be able to say, I did this.
Yes.
I researched this.
Yes.
I sought it out. I purchased it. It's just another frontier that women haven't ventured into very much yet, but it's coming.
It is.
100%.
It is.
I got into this, no, I won't say accidentally, but it wasn't intentional.
Yeah.
I am very much artistic as well. And so I was into interior decor and home renovation and, I did decorative painting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we have 3 sons and they were getting older. Well, we had 2 independent businesses that were exploding. Well, we also have to parent these kids and, be part of their upbringing. And so we had to make some really hard choices. And we decided to shut down my business and put all of our eggs into this basket because I saw that there were so many holes where women could fill these spaces.
Absolutely.
And he is brilliant when it comes to that shop.
Yeah.
But the man can't market to save his life. He had some just sterile chairs up.
Oh, yeah.
There was not a lick of paint on the wall. Everything was gray. It looked like a mental hospital. It was so terrible. So that was immediately what I did when I stepped into the space was start bringing a homey feeling in where people could come in and feel comfortable. And our clients, in our waiting area, they'll take business calls and conference calls. And that makes me feel really happy to see that they're so comfortable here. And I've began to, it's a balance with all of the negative. There's a lot of positive that's happened.
There is.
And so I just love that there's more female in little pockets, but I'm seeing more and more of it the past few years.
Right. And that is, yes, we can go all day long about the days that were mansplained or were ignored.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I see more good
Yes.
than I see the bad. And it is because of that softness, that femininity that we brought into a space that didn't have it before.
Yeah.
And I think it's just so cool to see happen.
So where do you see yourself in this space in another 5 to 10 years?
Oh gosh, this is a conversation my dad and I have a lot. Truly, now this is today. Truly, I think when he retires, I'll be done. But I also don't know what I would do with all of this energy.
Yeah.
So if an opportunity arose where I could still be in the car business, in some capacity, I may. It's just that, I don't do, one of the things about our business is that really the business is Jeff. It's like, if you're going to buy and sell the cars, it's him, and he knows what he's doing, and he knows so much about these cars. And then I'm the one who does all of the back end. I'm gonna do the books and the sales and the sales receipts and all of that stuff. So if he's done, I don't know what that would look like. But I know that I've got a lot of years and a lot of energy left. So really, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's one of those things that I talk to God about every day. I'm like, what would happen? What would happen? What would be next? I know my team, have recently said, if he retires, we'll stick with you. And I'm like, I can't do this without him. But maybe in 5 to 10 years I can. I don't know. Right now I'm not there. I'm not comfortable enough yet.
Yeah.
But things change really quickly, I found.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you look back and you're like, wow, we've come a long way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I've definitely learned that if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, because I can't sit down and put together the estimates, and I can't do a one-on-one consultation with anyone, but I know this business doesn't move without me either. Rich can build the cars.
Right.
But there's so much more that goes into business. And I think that's where the breakdown of respect happens. Because historically, in these industries, men were able to function well enough without without the other facets of business. Yes. Now, we have a really unique position because being born in the 80s, we were kind of the latchkey kids. Mm-hmm. We learned independence very young, grew up in the 90s. And then, turn of the century, we began to see really the birth of the internet and social media. And we were the MySpace generation, and then the Facebook generation, and then the Instagram generation, and Twitter, and now TikTok. and information and trends move at breakneck speed, and what I have seen is that men like that don't function well in that space.
Oh goodness, no.
But you can't have one without the other. Not really, and see any type of substantial success.
Exactly.
And so I think that really exposing the relationship between the different styles in business is really beautiful.
Yes. Absolutely. And that's why, people will say, again, I want to talk to the boss. I want to see the boss and say, well, which boss do you want?
Of what?
Of what? Yeah. Like, you selling me something, you're going to want to talk to me. If you want to buy a car, you can talk to Jeff, and then you're going to come to me because I'm going to deal with all the money. But there's going to be different bosses.
Yeah.
And, I'm to the point now, if I leave the country, like I was gone 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago, I was in England and Wales. And it was like they were melting down. They were like, oh my gosh. And they did a really good job. I was really happy. I came back. I was like, okay, nothing's burned down. Everything's here. But there was definitely an understanding, like, what's going to happen if I have to do this, or I need to do this, and Caitlin's not here. And I'm like, you got this. Mm-hmm. And they did, but it was a challenge.
Follow policy and procedure. That's why I love Danielle so much. She came out of the medical industry.
Yes.
She ran assisted living facilities. She worked in nursing homes. And so she dealt with, when I tell you, all walks of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you have stressed out, grieving families, or you have, older people who are just coming into dementia care or, transitioning into a different season in life. And so she has a completely different set of skills and background experience than any of us. And so even what Rich lacks and I lack, she's very procedural, and
Yes.
we didn't have a employee handbook before she came here. Oh no. We didn't have, anything structured. It was just like, well, it's Monday. We got to go to work,
Yeah.
And so she's the one that figured out like staggering lunch breaks. And she, she just came up with literally all of our procedures
Yeah.
here. And I think that in itself, it really should be a case study of how successful a business can be when you pull people with different strengths
Yes.
from different walks of
Absolutely.
life and figure out how you can use those strengths and integrate them. Now, it was a learning curve because she would say things like she called a pitman arm the car's armpit. And she would, he would say, go pull in the Mercedes. And she was like, okay, is that the one with the star or the, we're like, what are you talking about? She's just talking about the emblem.
Yeah.
So it was a big learning curve for all of us. Yeah. We had to learn to speak Danielleese,
right.
And she had to learn how this industry works. But we literally have customers. I mean, this morning we had a customer come in to pick up a car and ended up staying and chatting with her for 30 minutes, telling her about all of his Easter experience and showing her videos of family. And I'm like, who are you?
No, it's great to have all of those different. And we're really just now getting, because for a long time it was just me and him. And then we brought on my brother. And that was a whole different experience because Kian's brain works. Mine and Jeff's brain works exactly the same. I mean, we are the same person. And Kian's totally out in left field from us. So that was a learning curve. And now we have a mechanic and we have a photographer. And we're just getting to that point where, like, we're grooving now. But it has been so great to see each of their strengths.
Yeah.
And how we can all bounce off of each other. And that's such a fulfilling feeling.
So you and your dad did everything for the longest time. Mm-hmm. That in itself is stressful.
Oh my God.
So how did you make that decision when it was finally time to expand and start adding to your team?
When he was doing, so my grandfather was a photographer. My dad's a very accomplished photographer, and I love photography. Which is how I got on to be social media lead for the Releve Society and the ballet. So he was taking all the pictures and marketing them and selling them. And, he'll be 70 on Saturday.
Wow.
So, he was getting into his mid-60s and doing all of that and just being exhausted at the end of the day. And so, we pulled in a photographer, and now we have a new photographer, and who actually has a huge amount of experience in working with Porsches and vintage cars. So he kind of like fell into our lap, and he's been amazing. And then when our main British mechanic here in town, JD, he retired about a year ago now. When he retired, we were like, oh no, we can't function without a British mechanic because the majority of our cars are British. So we plucked his best mechanic when that happened. And that was the moment we were like, okay, we have to have somebody on hand all the time. We need a photographer all the time. We need my brother Kian, who does all of the trucking and, lining the cars up and taking this there, and that we need him all the time so that he and I can sit in the office and do what we do best, where he can list the cars and talk to people, and I can do all of the other things. I can do the taxes, I can do the books, I can do the paperwork, so it was really, really when I think he realized how much time he was taking pictures and answering phone calls that we were like, we're going to have to get more people in here.
Yeah.
So this team has really just become a team within the past 5 months.
Wow.
But it's working really well. Knock on wood.
So excited for you guys.
Thank you.
There's always that moment of like a catch, like, oh, did we make a mistake?
Right.
We just expanded.
Oh, yeah.
We've done a lot of it. We've expanded, let's see, since 2018, I want to say 7 times since 2018. when I say massive growth, sister.
Ooh,
So, and every time it's like, are we sure about
what
this?
have we done? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And for anybody who's listening to this, who is just starting out in business, who's brand new, who's like chasing a passion, do you have any words of wisdom that you would bestow on our listeners, especially females?
Oh man. I'd say start every single day with prayer.
That's a really good advice.
There's really, because if you don't start with that higher power, with that, things just start to fall apart.
Yeah.
So definitely taking everything to prayer, knowing that you don't have all the answers, that you don't have all of the wisdom. Asking for help, which was really, really, really hard for me and Jeff. Really hard to ask for somebody else to come in, ask to have another hand, another help.
To let go of that control is scary.
Outsourcing is a good thing.
Yeah.
It might take a few tries. It might take a few different people, but outsourcing is a good thing.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning that. We just added an element into our business that I was against forever. I was like, I don't want to do that. It scares me to death. And then once we did it, I was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, relinquishing control, which is so hard because that's your baby. That's your business. You've put your blood, sweat, and tears, and that's your reputation.
Yeah.
But that takes a certain amount of humility. So I think always remaining humble. And that's so true, because you can have wonderful years where you think that you are the cock of the walk and the next year is in the toilet.
Yeah.
So maintaining that humility, I think those would be my two biggest things is seeking out that higher power, that wisdom, and remaining humble.
Yes.
And I think with those two things, everything will fall into place.
I love that. I love that so much.
Caitlin,
you are such a ray of sunshine. I can't wait to do some more things with you guys. I would love to get Rich out to your
I would love that.
shop and maybe do a little vlog for Elite. That would be
so fun.
Amazing to just like expose you guys to our client base and our viewership, and also to show that, hey, women can be in this space too.
Yeah, absolutely. I
love that.
Yeah, no, that would be fun. I would love that. Like I said, my dad would flip over this business.
We'll have to get him here.
Goodness, I would hear about it for the rest of my life. I would hear about this facility for the rest of my life.
I love it. No, we'll absolutely have him out. Honorary guest. I think he'd have a blast back there. Listen, my husband can talk about cars in his sleep. We literally eat, sleep, and breathe the auto industry. We'll be in bed at night, and what is he watching? Some YouTube channel about cars. He's like, I gotta figure out how to do this transmission,
And if you're like me, when you leave here, you don't want to talk about it.
I want out, sister.
Do not tell me what kind of car you have. Do not tell me what kind of car your grandpa drives. I do not want to talk about it. When I'm out of my office, and we get asked that, like, don't you guys go to Cars and Coffee? Don't you go to the meets? And we're like, no, because when we're done, we are done.
We are done. Now, I'll tell you one thing we're doing this year that I am excited about. That is going to be technically extracurricular for us. We have sponsored a drift car. Our shop manager decided he was going to do drift, and he's really good at it.
That's so exciting.
And he was like, I want to build a drift car. Would you guys sponsor me? And we're like, we might as well.
That's so fun.
We do everything else. So we're going to be at all of these drift events over the next 8 months. Honestly, I have been, because I didn't cut my teeth in this industry. And so when I met Rich in 2018, that was really my first experience in this space. And so he started bringing me to car shows, and I hated it.
It's an acquired taste.
I loathe car shows because it's so cultish. Mm-hmm. They're very snobby.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, this ain't for me. Mm-mm. But I love the motorsport festivals. Yeah. I love the drift scene. Yeah. Oh my God, I have just fallen head over heels into it. And I'm like, well, this is where we're going to be now.
So fun.
So now we sponsor Slush Motorsport Festival
That's so
that comes in
cool.
the fall. So we'll have you and your dad come
Oh
out.
my gosh, my brother Kian would love that. Like drift. Oh, that's his thing.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, he loves that sort of thing.
Done.
Yeah, loves that sort of
Done.
thing. Yeah.
We'll introduce him to the drivers.
yeah.
We'll get him out on the
He'll be
track.
thrilled. He'll think that's great.
We'll put him in the car with Kieran. Absolutely. Caitlin, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been wonderful.
For
I
sure.
so appreciate it.
Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on socials?
So on the social, well, for Frazier Motorcar Company, on Instagram, we're at Frazier Motorcar Co. And then for me personally, I'm at Caitlin S. Frazier. And that won't have any cars. Like ever. But
it will have a lot of strong female inspiration.
Yeah, lots. It's very girly.
Yeah.
It is very girly. That's where I go to escape the cars. And then for Frazier Motorcar Company, you can find us at jpfrazier.com. And that's where all of our cars are and our story. My cute little dad is there.
I can't wait to meet him. And we will have all of these links in our show notes.
Yeah.
And we are not done. This is not the end of our story together.
I'm excited.
Awesome.
I'm excited. It'll be a part 2.
Guys, thanks for tuning in this week. We will check back with you soon. Bye.